Welcome to another voyage. After 3 months of being in Thailand, I am officially leaving. The question is, where am I going? Welcome to Cambodia. Yesterday I hopped the 1-hour flight from Bangkok to Phnom Penh. I've been here for just under 24 hours now, and boy, Cambodia is a lot different than I expected it to be. In this video, I wanted to go through a little bit of my first impressions of Cambodia and how it compares to Thailand. I will admit that I am really biased because I've been living in Thailand for almost 3 years now. And of course, when you go to any new place, there's a lot of differences. But I just wanted to point out some of the interesting things I've seen so far, and so you can get an idea of what Cambodia is like if you were thinking of visiting here. So when I arrived at the airport yesterday, it was a pretty easy process, although it was a bit tedious. When you get off the plane, they've got like multiple checkpoints. They've got one guy that checks your documents, then another guy that checks basically the same documents before you go through immigration. Once you go through immigration, they give you a rapid COVID test, and I have to say, it was the most painful test I've ever had. Whoever they hired took pleasure in jamming that thing into your nose like an ice pick. Luckily, everyone on the plane appeared to be negative. They let us out of the airport, and then I got a SIM card before getting into a taxi. I met a guy from the US, he's from the San Francisco area, and he actually got scammed right at the SIM card counter before we even got out of the airport. What happened was he was trying to buy a 1-month plan, which was $8 US, and he gave her the $8, but once we got into the taxi, he realized that she only gave him a 1-week package. So she basically charged him like $4 or $5 and then pocketed the rest. Or at least that's what we think happened. When it comes to the hotel, I probably should have done a bit more research. I was in a little bit of a rush because I needed the hotel booking to get the visa. So I just looked on TripAdvisor and picked something with some good reviews. And I tried to pick a hotel that was a little on the nicer side just to play it safe. That being said, the hotel is still pretty basic, and it definitely still has that Southeast Asian feel, not really a Western style hotel. And actually, when I came downstairs this morning, they had a pig on the floor in the hotel lobby, a cooked pig, and I didn't know what was going on, but I think it was an offering, religious offering to the god or the altar they have there in the lobby. I see these kinds of religious offerings with food and drinks in Thailand all the time, but they're pretty much always outside. This one was right in the middle of the hotel lobby. They had all these drinks and they had a big cooked pig. And I took my phone out to get a quick picture, but as I took my phone out, I saw everybody in the lobby looking at me, and I'm the only foreigner, so then I slowly put my phone away. If it's still there when I go back, I'll try to sneak a video. See ya. It was a little weird because the tuk-tuk I just took over here, when I asked him how much, he quoted me in US dollars, which is something that really surprised me. I didn't know until I got here. Even though they have their own local currency, I think it's the real, almost everywhere here they use US dollars. So if you're coming here from the US, don't feel like you have to exchange your money for local currency. Just use your US dollars, because I actually think it's a lot easier than having to deal with the conversion back and forth to the local currency. I'm in this market area now, and one thing I've noticed from being here the last day is there's pretty much no foreigners in Cambodia right now. There's so few, to the point where when I walk around sometimes at night, last night when I was walking around, if I walk past like a restaurant or a bar or like a shop, some of the locals, especially the girls, would like tap their friend and point at me, and it was almost like they're saying like, oh my god, there's a foreigner here. It's been really interesting to compare this city to Bangkok, because from what people tell me, this is what Thailand was like about 20 years ago. One thing that is a bit different than Thailand for sure though is the heavy Chinese influence. Of course, there's still a bit of the Chinese influence in Thailand and in Bangkok in particular, but here it's very strong. For example, when I got off the plane, there were so many advertisements that were written in Khmer and Chinese. and you can tell that they really target the Chinese as the main tourist group here in Phnom Penh. And that is especially true when it comes to the casinos and gambling. Besides Macau, Cambodia has the only legalized gambling in Southeast Asia. Because of that, many of the surrounding countries, especially people from China, come here to get their gambling fix. Since I've been here, in the back of my head I've been thinking, is Phnom Penh someplace that I could live? And to be honest, it's sort of an unfair question because I love Bangkok and Thailand so much that I just can't imagine finding a place that I would like even more. That being said, I've really tried to keep an open mind, and I'm working hard to explore different parts of the city and see what it's like. Up to this point, I'm not quite sure about Phnom Penh for me. The city is very quiet, and I think a lot of that has to do with COVID, but it is about 1/10 the size of Bangkok, so that's another part of it. I just came to this neighborhood called BKK1 because it was recommended in pretty much every blog post as the place that a lot of foreigners and expats live. So I'm gonna walk around and check it out for a little bit. Hold up, I just found some authentic local food that I wanna try. Yeah. I mean, considering that the average salary is only $2.50 per day in Cambodia, it just seems kind of crazy that half of that is in this one donut. I was just looking on Airbnb at apartments in this area, and really there weren't that many options. I mean, in Bangkok, there's endless options on Airbnb at all different price points. Here, they definitely have a few options. I thought they were a tad on the expensive side, especially because I was under the impression that Cambodia was less expensive than Thailand. But then again, I am in a fairly expensive area. I'm just not sure why there's not that many available. I would think there'd be tons available, especially with the whole ongoing COVID pandemic and how there aren't many travelers right now. Now, let's hop in a tuk-tuk and head to the Riverside area. Just got out to the Riverside area, and man, it is beautiful out here. It's so peaceful at sunset. Everyone has come out here to just enjoy the weather. It's not too hot now. I just took the tuk-tuk over here from that other neighborhood. It was about a few kilometer drive, maybe like 2 or 3 kilometers. It took about 15 or 20 minutes though because of the traffic right now. It's rush hour. And it only costs like $1.50 or $1.75. So the transportation here can be really cheap, and that's actually a really cool part about Phnom Penh, I think. So my final thoughts on my first few days in Cambodia. Well, I think Cambodia is definitely a bit rough around the edges. That being said, it does maintain a lot of its culture and its history, which I think a lot of other places lose as they develop. I think within 5 to 10 years, this city is going to be a major hub for Southeast Asia, and even more so before COVID, I think there will be a lot of international visitors here. Phnom Penh does feel a lot smaller than Bangkok, and for me, I really like that big city feel, but I think that sort of thing is really up to your individual preference. Transportation is easy and cheap, but the one thing that I can't wrap my head around right now is why the food seems to be so expensive. And I know I've been in some more tourist areas where I expect the food to be a little bit on the pricier side, but it's been far more expensive than even Bangkok, and Bangkok is expensive for Thailand. So I'm just not sure what I'm doing wrong here to keep going to places where the food costs so much. The heavy Chinese influence here does feel a little awkward to me. It sort of feels like the whole city caters to the Chinese and they really just don't care about anybody else. I mean, almost all of the signs are in Chinese, tons of advertisements. I mean, that whole casino over there was basically built specifically with the Chinese in mind. That part feels a little weird. I mean, I know there's obviously a lot of Chinese people in Bangkok and in Thailand as well, but the relationship seems a little different here. Now, having been here once, I think before my next trip, I'll be able to better research this place and figure out a lot of the odd things about, you know, like where to stay, where to go for food, where to go out at night. I think I'll be able to figure that stuff out a little better. So that is it. That is my first 2 days in Phnom Penh. If you have any tips or suggestions about Cambodia, I would love to hear them because I really want to come back here soon. In fact, I might even come back at the end of March. If you enjoyed this video, then I think you will like this one as well. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next video.